Well, we can probably get started. Before I do, could I get a volunteer to take some notes for me?
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you, Sean. So let's start in with check-ins and sneak peeks and all that good stuff. So I can talk through some releasey things that have been going on. We did a couple patch releases, I think, since the last meeting with a few different bug fixes in. I think I just wanted to call out two of those in particular. One was a fix for etcd mode where watches were not behaving correctly sometimes after etcd compaction events. So that was fixed in 3.16.5. So if you're using etcd mode, I'd recommend upgrading to that. And the other was an install issue that we introduced in 3.16.0 for the CNI plugin, where it would get stuck if trying to install the plugin when the executable on disk was already in use. So I just wanted to bring some attention to those. In more exciting news, 3.17 is right on the horizon, or maybe even closer than the horizon now. We're aiming to release that early next week, with some pretty cool stuff in it. The one I'm most excited for is automatic MTU support. So no more manual configuration of the MTU field, which will be great. Also got a number of Windows improvements there. So we'll have support for BGP networking in Windows. I think the first release of that just had VXLAN networking. And additional support for platforms. So I think we've done a lot of testing on OpenShift and Rancher, and have made improvements related to that. And we've got another important fix around service advertisement, which helps prevent routing loops when you're using that feature. So I think that's a pretty big one as well. That's all I had for releases, unless anybody else wanted to jump in with something I forgot or a question or. If not, the other thing I wanted to call out was we've got KubeCon talk coming up. So that's Aloys and myself who are doing that. It's next Thursday, I think, is the 17th at 2:55 p.m. So that's exciting. We'll both be on there answering questions. And
what's the subject matter?
Yeah, sorry. It's we're talking about the VPP data plane integration that Aloys and his team have been working on. So gonna give.
What time zone is that?
Oh man, all the hard questions. It's a really good question. I have a link to the talk that I can put in, but it's Eastern time. Yeah. I'm glad you asked that because I would have assumed it was Pacific because I am self-centered. Yeah.
Just for your information, last week I was a speaker on the Google Developer Conference, and I was talking about Calico and root reflectors.
Awesome. Yeah, think I saw some Twitter action about that. That's pretty exciting.
Maybe in the next couple of days I will have the video, so I should share it with you.
Yeah, please do. I'd love to see that. And also let me know if you have any tips for virtual conference talks. I guess the one Aloys and I did is pre-recorded, but we'll have question time. So I think that's all I had. Nathan, was there anything you wanted to talk about?
Maybe just an update on VPP. We did a release in between 08.2 where we're still trying to approach GA. We added state reconciliation, so ability to restore the agent, and for the coupon a few performance tweaking parameters to make it customizable a bit faster. And we are still looking at the policies implementation. We've got a working prototype still in the testing though. And we did also improvements on the NATing, so service IP, to improve performance and to get a few PPS more there. So we should have something releasable hopefully before the end of the year. But if 3.17 is coming right around the corner, we should also include auto MTU, so programming MTU in VPP, which we'll obviously do.
Yeah, I saw that that big policies PR get merged, which is exciting. Looking forward to putting that through the whole set of tests and everything that we got. Eric, did you have anything you wanted to say about Operator? I think you have a demo for us later, but maybe that's.
I don't think so. Let's see.
That's totally fair.
Been focused in one part, and so I forget what is in the different releases and whatnot. I'm sure there's some new things that are going to be with 3.17, but I don't know what. I mean, I've been working on migration stuff mainly, so which is what I'm going to be demoing. Yeah.
Cool. Any other topics that anybody had before we move on? Take that as a no. In that case, why don't we move on to some hot issues? I think for once I don't have one myself, so I'll open it up for anybody else who's got an issue on their mind that they'd like to talk about.
So I have some where there are various issues with BPF mode and EKS and we're working on those, hoping to get those fixes in for 3.17. There's an issue with the AWS NLB as well. So basically, BPF mode kind of has pretty deep hooks into the networking stack, and so does the packet path for things like NLB and EKS. They both do kind of unusual things. So we got a bit of a collision there where there's a conflict, but we're working on that. So I think we've got the issue with EKS and node ports resolved on the master branch, and hopefully we can cherry pick that across to 3.17. If not, it might be in the 3.17 one if it doesn't make it. And then still investigating NLB. It might be the same issue, or it might be a different one.
And just to pile on there, Sean, I'm still trying to figure out whether or not there's something related here to machines that underwent migration from Flannel to Calico don't seem to work correctly here, but then new machines that didn't undergo migration that come up and use the same Calico node configuration do seem to work okay. I haven't figured out what's different between them yet other than that.
Is this only in BPF mode, or is it?
Yeah, I've only been testing it yes, I've only noticed the problem there.
Maybe it was those stale IP tables rules that you spotted. Those could be different, but I'm not sure where they came from. So we can keep chatting on Slack and see if we can figure it out.
Yeah, still trying. Thanks.
I'm not really sure why, but for some reason that whole conversation did bring up something I wanted to mention, which is that we just merged a PR to update the versions of Istio that we're including in our docs. So I think we were quite a few releases behind there and have now caught up, which is exciting. Again, totally unrelated to the previous conversation, but I wanted to bring that up because I know that there have been some reports of things not quite working with Istio, and I'm hopeful that this version upgrade bringing us into the present will at least help with some of those.
Yeah, nice. Do you know whether that work refreshed the Yaobank sample application as well? Because I seem to recall that was using some older manifest stuff that's not really supposed to be supported anymore.
I seem to recall that happening, but I would have to go double check. Sometimes it's hard to tell if something happened or it was just talked about a lot, so you feel like it happened. Should we do some shout outs? I am very excited about mine, even though he's not here, but I wanted to give a super big shout out to Aloys, who put in a ton of work on his KubeCon talk and made it very easy for me. He did a bunch of editing. I made it extra hard on him by sending him the wrong take of my thing, so he put it all together, and then I realized it was the wrong bit, and he just totally took it in stride. So yeah, I wanted to give an extra big shout out to Aloys for that. And maybe that's it for shoutouts. In that case, Eric, all eyes on you for a little bit of operator demo.
Sure. So Sean, if you can let me have the share. So yeah, so the operator has for a while now supported being able to go from a what we call manifest-based install, which means a manifest that deploys Calico node is a daemon set and typically creates a Calico config map that's used, and been able to take an installation like that and migrate or really roll the those components over to an operator managed set. And part of that is because the operator deploys things in a different namespace. It uses Calico system instead of kube system for like Calico node and kube controllers. But it hit in its first form, all the onus was on the user to make sure that the operator installation configuration that they set up matched what was in the manifest install. We have made some big strides in being able to load in a default installation resource, which is what, if you're not familiar with it, is what the operator monitors and causes it to kick off an install or deployment. But what we have done now is when it sees a installation, it will and sees that there is a manifest one already existing, it will read, the daemon set, the config, even some of the data store, and take and translate that and set the correct values in the installation resource, so that the onus isn't on the user now to make sure that this new operator install matches what the previous one was. So the demo I'm going to do is just a couple of installs that start with Calico and upgrade with the operator. So let me share my terminal. Hopefully it will be big enough. Is that text good for everybody? Cool. So I have, excuse me, I have 3 different clusters. This one, the first one we're going to look at is a kind cluster that I use if you're familiar with the operator code and the utilities in there, we have a kind cluster that you can create with create cluster, I think. Something like that. Yeah, cluster create. Now, granted, I have made a few tweaks, so it's not exactly going to work if you want to try this yourself. But so we can see here, I actually already installed Calico, and I was gonna take a look at a few things to show some of the specific tweaks I made to make sure it was obvious that we are picking up the config from the different resources. So I'm going to take a look first at Calico node. Actually, let's use, I've started using kubectl neat. Strips out a bunch of stuff that I usually don't want to look at. So things that I wanted to point out was that I've changed the block size here. I've also changed the, well, I've changed the MTU, but that's in Calico config. So we'll look at that in a sec. I also tweaked the resource request. And so if we also get map, well, we can see here. Here's my special MTU that I set. So this is just to kind of show you the before. And so now if I'm going to apply the operator. And so kind of like I was saying, that's just getting the operator deployed. It's not actually doing anything yet because there's no installation resource. So let's actually take a look at that custom resource that I'm going to apply. So we'll see, I'm applying a completely empty one. And that is just so the operator will pick that up and see that it, should be deploying. So now I'm going to go back to, I have this watch that I use. We'll see now there's a Calico. This is a Tigera resource. So this is how the operator kind of reports back on how things are going. You can see it's launched a couple pods here, the Taifa and Kube controllers and Calico system. First thing it's got to do is it's got to update the Calico nodes and Kube system. But we can go ahead and actually look here. See, can we see everything? No. Get. So here, if we look at the installation, we see that the IP pools that it's configured for has our block size of 27. There's that special MTU, and we have the resource requirements or requests that were in the original manifest-based install and have now been translated over to the operator. And we can keep watching this. It will get to rolling over the Kube system. Maybe we'll go on to the next and check back on this in a little bit. But that's the main thing that I'm wanting to demo, is that we grab those configs and translate them into an installation resource so that the operator is installing to match what was previously there. Here is a GKE one. Now, this is not going to show a migration necessarily because you can't in GKE if you have it install Calico, because it uses add-on manager and makes sure things don't get installed or don't change where it doesn't want. But I wanted to do this to show how the operator will detect that and actually not try to roll out. And it does this for not just cases where we know something is going to be interfering and blocking the migration, or but also if there are things that we see in the manifest or see in the config that is not something that the operator supports, then it will also report that and say and not try to migrate. So we've done our best to make sure that we only migrate a cluster that we believe that we can successfully migrate and block others. And this is actually the same custom resource as I applied for the last one, just to show there's no smoke and mirrors. But now if we look here, so I've applied that. We can see that we've actually not updated, the operator hasn't updated the installation with any defaults because it is blocked. We can see here that the Tigera status being reported is degraded. We're not progressing and it's not available. We can see no Calico system namespace components. And if we get oops, no, not that, get Tigera status, Calico, we'll see that it's saying that we can't modify components managed by the add-on manager, which is on the Calico node daemon set. So this is why the operator is not trying to migrate in this install. So let's jump back to the kind cluster. You can see things have deployed now. Our installation is still there. I'm not going to go through. We could go look at Calico node and see that the right fields are set, but let's just assume the operator's doing its correct job of translating the installation to the correct install, unless somebody is really interested in getting into that.
Question, Eric?
Yeah.
I saw the Taifa pods there. Oh wait, I just saw you have a. Sorry, that window you just showed, there was a horizontal.
Sorry, I maybe skipped. So I'm back on the kind cluster one.
I was going to ask you, maybe you'll answer this moment about scaling the Taifa pods with the number of nodes in the cluster, whether the operator takes care of that.
It does. It does that. And we're maybe a bit aggressive for the number of Taifas, at least when on a small cluster. But you'll see. So if you have 4 nodes, and this is counting masters, you will have 4 Taifas. But then after that, I think you have to get up to. It's a quite high number. It kind of makes testing a little bit of a pain, but like
what was 200 per?
Yeah, I want to say up to like you have to get to like 200 before you'll get a 5th Taifa or something.
Okay.
So yeah, it will do that. Okay, so so now I'm on to an EKS cluster, and actually the way this one was deployed, this was it was an EKS install with AWS node, and then I also did a Calico manifest install on top of that is configured to work with the AWS CNI plugin. So I was going to quickly show that. So when Calico node is configured to work with AWS node, it needs the Felix interface prefix set to ENI. So I just thought I'd show that real quick to show that that's what this configuration is. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other two. Apply Tigera operator. We're going to get our CRDs added, and then custom resources. So now should be off to the races. So you can see here we're starting again. I'm not exactly sure why. I haven't looked into why we do this in pieces, but now we can see that we are progressing. We are degraded because not everything's been rolled out, but we are progressing. Well, and actually you can see the what I would call the important part here. We can see that we have detected that Amazon PPC is the CNI plugin being used. So the operator is going to roll that out. Yeah. I don't know if there's any more I need to show. I think that's. Oh well, actually, you can see there also that we even detected that we're on EKS, though that's not actually a new migration thing. That's something we've done for a while. Any questions or anything more you want to see?
It's great, Eric. Lots of legwork behind that.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add something. So Steve asked about whether we scale the number of Taifas. One other thing that you might not have thought of is we actually the operator secures the Felix Taifa connection as well, which is a fiddly job to do by hand, and it's the kind of thing that you might not do if you don't feel like setting up a certificate authority and so on. But one of the things the operator does for Taifa as well is it sets up all the certificates that you need and makes that nice and secure as well.
Yeah. And while it does that by default, if you do want to provide your own, we do, I mean, that is exposed to where you can provide your own certificates for those also. But yeah, it's certainly more secure than it was in our previous. I mean, that's one of the benefits of the operator. It's we're able to default those and set those things up where we couldn't really do that with the manifest-based install.
Yeah, if we just include a public-private key pair in the like public YAML on our website, it doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
Looking at the installation object, we can see just the tip of it down there.
Oh.
It looks like it has a whole bunch of settings that we're used to either putting into the Calico config map, Calico node config map, or putting into the various environment variables in Calico node. Are you aiming to be able to represent all of those configuration options that Felix understands, all of those things here in this custom object?
No. So I mean, I don't know if you're talking specifically like Felix config. No, we certainly don't want to re-implement or provide a new API for setting all those. We do want to provide, I think, the ones for the most part that are required during installation time. But if there are things that are in Felix config, we would prefer that we're not putting them here. And actually, some stuff may be needed at installation time that we don't plan on putting here, but because of the order that we do, or because of we apply our CRDs, it would be possible to create Felix config before the operator starts running, and then the nodes that start up will use the configuration that's in that Felix config. If that makes sense.
Maybe I asked the question wrong. What I'm wondering is, let's say right now there's reasons why you might want to go, say, edit the Calico node daemon set yourself in order to set values in there. Is the idea that if I were running the operator like this, I've ceded control of that daemon set over to the operator, I should never edit that object myself?
Yes, and that's actually something that the operator will, it'll fight you on. It'll run this reconcile loop, and if you had configured something in the daemon set, it would revert that to what it expects to have. And so for the most part, we don't want to need edits to the daemon set, and we would either want, if something has to be set in the daemon set, then yeah, we would want it here in the installation resource. But ideally, if it doesn't need to be in the daemon set and it can just be in Felix config, it can, you would still have the ability to change that Felix config. There are a few things right now that get set through environment variables that we do want to stop setting as environment variables. And like if the operator needs to set a default for that, like it would write it to Felix config.
Okay.
So if you needed to overwrite that, you could, change it or be the first to write the Felix config, and then we wouldn't update that field, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess an example of that would be, I think it sets environment variables to configure Felix to talk to Typha with the right certificates and so on. But generally, I think the operator team want to move us away from environment variables because they override all the other config, and then your Felix config custom resource object doesn't take effect the way you're expecting. So it's kind of muddies the water.
I think I'm coming at this naively because I've never tried to use a Felix config object. I think I've only been exposed to the environment variable technique. So I was just curious about how, as the project evolves, how you're going to handle introducing new options to something like the Calico node container understands, and then propagating them outward through maybe your CRDs and then into this installation CRD also, so that you don't wind up in a case where there's low-level things that you need to configure that you can't configure through the operator.
Yeah, we haven't, I don't think we've hit or found many use cases where we need to do something like that yet. That isn't something that we are comfortable putting in the CRD. But yeah, I think we haven't found any good use cases for anything where we had to do. I mean, like we do. Well, I mean, you saw in the other one, in the first one, that well, I can't see it there, but the resource request, you know, that's just a standard Kubernetes thing that, you know, we figured was a safe thing to pass through, and so, you know, we're happy to do that. But yeah, we'll handle them as we come to them. And if you got something in mind, we would certainly be happy to hear if there, you know, see if there's a use case that there's something new we need to expose.
Yeah, just as an example, I've seen these kinds of things come up in Helm charts, for instance, that attempt to configure pod specs for you. A common one that they miss early on are things like extra annotations or extra tolerations that you want on the pods to allow them to run on nodes that are tainted in a way that maybe the authors hadn't anticipated.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Calico is a little different, I feel like, because like you're going to want it running everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, our tolerations for those are pretty broad. But yeah, annotations is something that we, that I don't see. I can't remember what we've done. I think we might have it where, or maybe this is like Casey said earlier, something we talked about but didn't do. Like I think if they're set on something, then, you know, it won't overwrite those. But yeah, we don't have a way right now to add additional annotations through the installation CR. So, yeah.
Okay.
Conceptually, though, feels like that's the kind of thing that would go in here when we add that feature. If you need extra annotations on your various pods, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's all I had. That wasn't obvious.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Eric or anybody on the call?
It makes it look so easy. It's very nice.
Try.
Yeah, I know that Eric and team have put a lot of work into that. It's very cool to see. Especially liked seeing how basically you run the same commands on all three of those platforms, and you don't have to think about it, right? It's the same YAML, same everything, and it does it for you. Well, I don't have any questions for anybody.
I think with Veterans Day, it's a quieter week, so we've got fewer people here.
Well, in that case, I will see you all on Slack and GitHub and stuff. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Bye.
Bye.